and welcome to another super unprofessional quick video about Kubla Khan by Samuel Taylor Coleridge. At this point, you have read over the PowerPoint about dreams and Coleridge as a person and the circumstances surrounding him writing Kubla Khan. Coleridge's other big poem that he's really famous for is Rime of the Ancient Mariner, and I love it, but I did not assign it to you because it is very long, and in recognition of your time and all the other things you need to be doing right now. So instead, we're doing Kubla Khan, and I'm going to give you my thoughts on Kubla Khan. You're welcome to, look up anything about Kubla Khan. Much smarter people than me have given their thoughts on this poem, but this is just kind of my overview for when it comes time for you to take the test and to where you kind of know what you need to know about it. So you have already listened to a recording that I posted of Benedict Cumberbatch reading this poem because he does a lovely job. And so if you haven't done that, pause this video and go listen to him read this poem because he does a much better job than I would. Kubla Khan, you probably studied in school. Like Genghis Khan, he was one of the Mongol emperors who took over huge swaths of land, including China, and built this palace called Xanadu. And Coleridge, had been reading about this in the Chronicles of Marco Polo before he went to sleep. And so he took a bunch of opium for his pain and went to sleep and basically had a drug-fueled dream about Xanadu. There's a famous guy, I don't remember who it is, but he said this quote, and I'm not advocating drugs at all, but I'm just showing this to demonstrate that the association with drugs and art goes kind of way back. He said something about, you want to be anti-drug, you need to go burn all your favorite albums and tear down all your favorite movie posters and tear up all your favorite books, because I can guarantee you that a huge percentage of those were written while those people were high on drugs. And Kubla Khan is one of those things. And it is this kind of fever dream that, sorry, my hand itched, as you know, was interrupted by a visitor. So here, in the beginning, we have this description of this pleasure dome, which one time I had my students draw whatever images stuck out to them from this poem, and I have had many high school boys completely misunderstand what a pleasure dome is. It's just a palace. It's just a palace. It's just a palace where people, the inference is that you have fun in the palace and that it's a nice place to be. That's all. But the architecture is sort of dome-like. And it talks about the river going through these caverns, and then within the walls of the castle or of the pleasure dome, everything is very ordered and safe and organized. Walls and towers girdled round, there's gardens, there's trees that are blossoming and sunny spots of greenery, and everything's very pleasant. So only one of you, I think, had me for early Brit Lit, but we talked about this. There's always kind of a big divide between the inside and the outside when it comes to nature, and how, within the walls is this sense of security and order, but outside of the walls, when nature rules, it's just pure chaos and danger and excitement and possibly the supernatural. And he says, but oh, and then whenever a romantic poet uses a exclamation mark, that's some kind of a transition. There's a deep chasm that goes down from the river. The river goes down into a deep kind of chasm, canyon area. A savage place, as holy, as enchanted as air beneath a waning moon, was haunted by woman wailing for her demon lover. Again, remember that romantics were obsessed with the supernatural, with the occult, with kind of goth stuff. They were the sort of the proto-goths. And in this chasm, it's kind of like a whirlpool, with ceaseless turmoil seething. As if this earth in fast, thick pants were breathing, a mighty fountain momently was forced, amid whose swift, half-intermittent burst, huge fragments vaulted like rebounding hail. He's describing, at the center of this chasm, there's a geyser and a whirlpool that's, slinging up all this water, and it's very chaotic and very fast, and he uses this image of fast, thick pants, which kind of calls to mind a woman giving birth. In the movies, they're always, I've never given birth, but they're always doing that when they're trying to push and take these thick breaths in. So it calls to mind these images of chaos and creation and femininity. There's this giant hole, and it's wet. I'm not trying to be gross, but a lot of people have kind of analyzed this part as representing some kind of chaotic feminine energy. And keep in mind that Coleridge never had any damn luck when it came to women. That was not a good situation for him. I think he was in love with Dorothy forever. He never could seal the deal. He got married. It was a disaster. It was not. So it was a mysterious chasm to him. It was women were something that were kind of maybe dangerous or inscrutable. Something he never really could figure out. And talks more about the meandering mazy river. And amid this tumult, Kubla heard from far ancestral voices prophesying war. The shadow of the dome of pleasure floated midway on the waves, where was heard the mingled measure from the fountain and the caves, and there's these caves of ice. So right here, so there's all this like amazing, he's like really feeling himself, like getting into this incredible sensory description. Like these adjectives are 100, the verbs are 100. He's knocking it out of the park. You really feel like, you're experiencing this dream along with him that he had about Xanadu, and you're there. And then, boom, there's a space here. And right here, when he was writing down the dream once he woke up, because, you got to write this stuff down or tell somebody as soon as you wake up or it's going to be gone, this is when the visitor came. And it was a businessman, and we don't know much more detail than that, but he knocked on the door and showed up. And when Coleridge went to deal with him, he came back, and he could no longer... the garage door, that would be my husband. I'm going to attempt to keep taking this video because I've already come this far, and hopefully he won't interrupt me to talk about Minecraft. We will see how this goes. Anyway, this is when the visitor comes in, and so when he comes back, he is very frustrated, and he's at a loss, and does not have the ability to recall the rest of the dream. And so you'll notice that there is a shift here. The rhyme, the meter shifts, like the stanzas are a lot shorter. And suddenly we're talking about this damsel with a dulcimer. Could I revive within me her symphony and song? Okay, best guess is that the damsel with a dulcimer is actually a reference that he's making to the Greek muse of memory. And I am not even going to attempt to pronounce her name. I will save you from that butchery. But she is the muse of memory, and basically there is a tradition of people invoking the muses when they want to write something. Even Milton, when he writes Paradise Lost, starts Paradise Lost by invoking the muse of the Holy Spirit, of the Holy Trinity, and saying, please help me write this story about Jesus and do it in a way that honors God. So all the Greeks would invoke the muse. To invoke means to call upon. And so he's trying to invoke the muse of memory here. And remember, the Romantics love mythology and all sorts of stuff like that. They love the Greeks. And it's not working. The muse of memory is not helping him out here. And he just says, could I revive within me her symphony and song, to such a deep delight 'twould win me, that with music loud and long, I would build that dome in air. So he's saying, if I could just freaking remember, he is so mad here, like the baby rage is strong in this stanza. If I could just remember what I was trying to write about, I would build that dome in air, that sunny dome, those caves of ice, and all who heard should see them there, and all should cry, beware, beware, his flashing eyes, his floating hair. Weave a circle round him thrice, and close your eyes with holy dread, for he on honeydew hath fed and drunk the milk of paradise. So essentially what he is saying here is he's talking about the power of creativity and imagination. And he feels a deep sense of frustration for not being able... Hi, Tundra. Hello. My dog isn't here now. For not being able to recall what he was writing about before. Because he thinks, if I could just reach my potential, I could make this dome in your mind. I could make it so well described and so vivid that it would be real. I would be such a good poet that you would be afraid of me. I would be like a god. His flashing eyes, his floating hair. This is occult imagery here. Weave a circle round him thrice and close your eyes with holy dread. The milk of paradise, again, that could be a reference to opium, or it could not be. But he's basically saying, if I could just reach my full potential, not only in this poem, but otherwise, because Coleridge, and I empathize with this a little bit, was not as prolific as some of the other writers. And he was held back. As much as he was helped by the opium, far more he was held back by the opium. And like he would go a couple years and not write something, as opposed to Wordsworth that was like boop 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 boop. I write all the time. So it's talking about how he genuinely feels that poetry and language and description is powerful and that it's magic. That books can be magic, that poems can be magic, that plays can be magic. And that if he had just been able to remember and do what he wanted to do, he could truly build Xanadu in the mind of his readers and become so powerful that they would both worship and fear him with holy dread. So, it's a pretty cool poem. It's interesting because it shows the emphasis that the Romantics did put on dreams, whereas people before them would have probably said, ignore those, they're not important. The Romantics viewed them as a definite source of inspiration, and a lot of people today will still take stories from their dreams to write about for books. There's a writer at Roane State who's a teacher who's extremely famous and well-known and has a bunch of awards, Elizabeth Genovese, and she will write down her dreams when she wakes up and use them for inspiration in her writing. So that is not something that has died off, but Coleridge did it probably most famously, and then ended the poem with sort of this meditation on memory, but also how the Romantics really, really believed that imagination was powerful and creativity was powerful, and that you could be on the level of the supernatural yourself if you were that good. And if you're somebody who loves literature, and if you're somebody who loves language, then that probably resonates with you. If you've ever gotten really addicted to a book and just can't put it down, or if you feel like a book has changed your life, then you would agree with Coleridge here. You might look upon an author as somebody with godly powers. The rest of you who are just taking this class to, get it done and move on with your life and go be a physical therapy assistant, which, by the way, is extremely valid, and I wouldn't be able to make it without for the last 6 months, are probably like, that's BS. I don't think I would ever think of a poet as a god. But far be it from the Romantics to have any kind of humility. That wasn't something that they were great at. So if you have any questions about Kubla Khan, let me know. Again, if this analysis didn't make any sense to you or it was just rambling or pointless, I apologize. And again, I apologize for the extremely unprofessional mode of delivery. But I will let you go. Thank you for listening. Thank you for your 12 minutes. And I will have some discussion, or a discussion question for you in the comments under the Edmodo post about Kubla Khan. And it's going to go back to this poem and back to the PowerPoint that you read before you came here. So thank you for participating. You all have been really great so far. I have not had to a single time, like I said, chase anybody down for quizzes, or, you've all been participating, and you're an extremely Johnny-on-the-spot class, and I was even talking to my husband about that I wish I had the chance to teach you in person, because you're super responsible and professional. So thank you for that, and have a fabulous rest of your week. Bye!